If you told me a year ago that I'd be buying a house, I would not have believed you. I never thought I would be in this position, let alone actually in my lifetime did I ever think I would be able to call myself a homeowner. Truly, never thought I'd be here in a million years, especially after the year that I had. So, let me tell you about it. Alright, so as we all know, that is, if you've been here for a while, that last year my van blew up. And I mean literally.
Big hole. They blew the engine right up on you.
Oh no.
You see it?
Oh my god. Yeah, there's a whole video on it. You can go watch that. I'll link it somewhere. Now I sort of downplayed how deeply losing my van actually affected me, and mostly because like it's really hard to like complain about how,
oh my god, like I lost my van,
when it's like I was able to own a converted Sprinter van to begin with. I was able to cross the US in this Sprinter van. You know, like that's a dream that so many people have, and I got to live it. And so then to complain that, you know, like I've lost my van, I don't know, it just sort of felt like it felt rather entitled, but I would be lying if I said that it didn't affect me at all, because it did. Not only was it the loss of my van, it was the loss of my very first home. It was the loss of also my future. I also made a video of how I was going to sell the van because I wanted to do more international trips. And so the funds from the van were going to be able to help me pay off some of the debt that the van incurred, but also be able to fund the future trips for this channel. And so when I lost the van, I literally lost everything. I saw $5,000 when I sold it, and that literally paid off the rest of the debt, the mechanic debt that the van had incurred. And so I was at a net zero essentially, but yeah, it was like an $80,000 loss. So it really did hurt. It really, yeah, it hurt, and there was some grief. And that wasn't the only thing that happened. Actually, that wasn't the only thing that happened. A day after my van blew up, my mom broke her wrist, and like that whole summer, something else would happen, like to my parents. They had all these medical issues, and then my mom broke her toe, and then it's their medical stuff, so I don't want to share it on the internet, but it was just like one thing after the next, after the next, after the next. And so it was just like, it was like my whole world was like just snowballing. And yeah, it was like a hard year. Not only that, there were film strikes. So if you don't know, I used to work in the film industry, and last year in 2023 there were a plethora of film strikes that, yes, did affect the work that was coming in. I was one of the lucky few that had a job for most of the year, unlike others. However, though, when the film stuff eventually did dry up, you know, like that, I was in a position of like, what do I do? While I would say I had a lot of tragedy last year, I was also extremely lucky in my situation. So even though even though I lost my van, I lost what my perceived planned future was, and even though my parents were having all these medical problems, I was really lucky in my situation. I was really lucky in the sense that, well, A, I had film work majority of the years, unlike others, you know, so I did have a little bit of an income coming in. I had my Antarctica trip paid off a week before my van blew up, so I didn't even have to worry about that trip. I was also living at home, so I didn't have to pay rent at that time. And my parents wanted me home, especially now with all their medical issues. It's just good to have me there. And then on top of that, when the film stuff did dry out, I applied for a job as a screening officer at the airport in Victoria, and I got it. Between the time that I was applied for the screening officer job and I actually got the job was about a 4-month window, and in that time I went on this like epic pack rafting expedition, and I made a bunch of new friends. And then I got my very last film job, which was called Locked, and it was like a show with these two legends. And so I really got to like, I felt like I got to end my career on like a high note in the film industry. And then when that show was over, 2 days later, I was working at the airport, and that is like a whole other thing. I'm still there today, and I'm really enjoying the new, I'm really enjoying my new job. So even though my world at that point was like literally crumbling beneath my feet and nothing I could do, nothing I could do could just like catch up, it was crumbling for a reason. It was crumbling to make way for this like new life that I have created for myself. So fast forward to now, a year later. I went to Saturna Island and I absolutely fell in love. I fell in love with the Gulf Islands. I fell in love with the peace, the quiet, the wildlife, the water, just the remoteness of it all. Yeah, I fell in love, and I found myself a couple days after my trip looking at property, hoping one day that maybe I'll be able to afford something there. That was literally 2 months ago. So you can probably do the math on what happened in between. But how did it all happen? Now, strap in your butts because this is gonna be a whirlwind. Essentially, I was talking to my banker, told my banker that I was hoping to maybe look at property one day, not really thinking that it would ever be a thing, but she put me in contact with the broker. I messaged the broker, I told the broker my situation of like realistically how much I have, not very much. The broker said as long as my parents can help out and co-sign, should be no problem. I was like, this is great. So I knew Saturna Island was gonna be a little bit too far, a little bit too remote, so I was looking at other Gulf Islands instead. So I ended up looking at Pender Island because it was one of the closest ones, and it had a few places that I liked that were within my budget. So I set out a trip to Pender Island to be able to check out these properties. I hated them. The realtor pushed for me to come see this property. She was like,
It's a little over budget, but I really think that you need to see it because the sellers are also motivated to sell.
Of course, I'll pull up in the driveway. And I knew then. I basically knew the moment that I pulled up this driveway that this was my house. So what did I do? Of course, I put in an offer. Now you gotta understand, my offer was like, it was the highest I could go without being able to be like, where am I gonna find this money? Yeah, so they denied it. They ended up taking a bigger offer, and I was like, okay, that's fine. That means that this place wasn't meant to be, and I'm okay with it. Something else better, something else will come along, you know? 2 days later, I get a phone call from my realtor being like, the offer already has fallen through. They're willing to take the same offer that you put in if you do it today. And I was like, oh boy, I guess we're doing this now then. Holy smokes. I was just like, so of course they wrote up the original offer and sent it in again, and it was accepted. Now actually getting the place and going through the whole process of like, you know, trying to get the loan approved was a bloody nightmare for those first time home buyers. I'm rooting for you because I'm telling you it was hell. We're not going to go into it, but it was hell, and I never need to go through it again. You know, the pain and suffering was worth it because in the end, I got myself a house. I still cannot believe I can say I'm a homeowner. It is absolutely wild. I have had the keys for about a week now, and oh my God. Even driving up here today, I'm just like, what? This is mine. This is mine. This is mine. Oh gosh. And of course I have like big plans for the place. That is my I bought a house journey. Yes, your girl is savings poor, but I'm going to be okay. It's going to be an interesting year, that's for sure. I don't know what that means for the rest of the channel. Probably a lot of house content, so you can expect some of that. Yeah, I'm just gonna go enjoy myself now. Bye. Now, while I had a lot of like tragedy was
in the script.